All right, let's get to the general manager of your Carolina Hurricanes, Mr. Eric Tulsky, who joins us on the Adam Gold Show. I appreciate your time. There's nothing going on over there, is there?
Hey, it's just been a quiet week around here. Not much going on. Just like always, really. It's just chill time over here.
I understand. Let me just ask up front, because none of us have any clue how this is going to play out in terms of when he can draw into the lineup. I know your druthers, how much he will play, because that's really up to the head coach. But can you give us a sense, since I know the KHL, a lot of people haven't seen any of the videos or whatever, give us a sense of what type of player Alexander Nikishin is.
Yeah, so he is an all-around player. He's a 6'4" physical defenseman who throws some of the biggest hits in the KHL, and he also has really dynamic vision and creativity with the puck and the ability to score from spots where it's hard to score from. So he has a very complete game. And I think the most important thing here is it's a league where a lot of times the play is sort of passive, but the team he's coming from has sort of modeled their approach after the way we play. And so the transition hopefully won't be quite as big for him as it would be for a lot of people, but it's always a transition. And so it's hard to know how long that'll take, but maybe it'll be 2 practices, maybe it'll be 6 months. I don't know. We need to get him here and see.
Is there any, Eric Tulsky is joining us here, is there any insight you can gain from former Hurricanes? And there were a few on that team, Yevgeny Kuznetsov, Valentin Zykov, who was here for a little bit, Tony DeAngelo played there for half a season. Have you talked to any of them about what type of player/person you're getting?
I haven't. We have a development coach who spent a lot of time over there, and I've talked to him about him. And he's very high on him. Obviously, Alexander has a lot of ability, and there's no question that he can be an impactful player in this league. The only thing we don't know is how fast that'll happen.
Does it matter? And I assume it does, but you can assign it the importance to this, that he was a captain, a young player on a pretty veteran, a lot of veterans on that team.
Yeah, I mean, they speak very highly of him in terms of his attitude and his maturity. I know he wanted to be in the NHL very badly, and has worked hard to get to the point where he could make this happen. So he brings that kind of work ethic and that kind of leadership, and that got recognized. That's a team with a long tradition of history, and they don't have a lot of 23-year-old captains. So it does say something about him.
Eric Tulsky is joining us here, Hurricanes general manager, on the Adam Gold Show. Let me just dig into the contract. 2-year deal. It expires after next year. So effectively, it's kind of a last couple of days of this season plus next year. He's a restricted free agent at the end of this contract, correct?
Yep. He'll be the hockey's equivalent of the NFL's exclusive rights free agent, where he can sign with us, and he won't be available to do an offer sheet like a normal RFA. It's called a 10.2C in hockey terms because we come up with catchy names here. But yeah, so his contract will expire. He won't have the right to sign an offer sheet. He won't have our rights. We will be able to negotiate his next deal when we get there.
All right, Eric Tulsky is with us. Yeah, I mean, look, we all have. I'm glad you pointed that out because I don't really understand any of the contract issues that you guys are obviously great at dealing with. So now, let's go back. What were the hurdles that needed to be cleared in order to even get to this point, and when did they start for you?
Yeah, so his contract with SKA ran through the end of May.
Right.
So we needed to know that they would be willing to release him from that contract to let him sign with us. And then we needed to be able to negotiate a deal with his agent. And that takes time. And then on the side, we also need a work visa to have somebody come in from another country and get paid money to do a job in the U.S. And so we've been working on that on the side also. And that's kind of the last step to getting him here in games, is finishing that immigration process and getting him here.
Has that become, I know this is going to sound for some people like a political question, and maybe it is, but has that become more difficult of late than it was, say, a year ago?
So the process hasn't changed. I don't know whether the time to process a visa might have, because, we do know staffing levels have changed at some government agencies, and that may have an impact on how fast we can get the visa, but I don't know. I don't have any visibility into how it's coming along through the process. I just know any day now we would expect it to show up. It could have been here yesterday, could be today, could be Monday. That would be sort of the normal range.
And all of that impacts when he can draw into the lineup. He can't. Now, when can he physically come into the United States?
Not until he has a visa.
Right. Okay. So we have to get that. It's not like just getting a passport and just flying to another country, right?
Yeah, and it's even for extra fun complication because we don't have diplomatic relations with Russia. When the visa gets issued, he has to make an appointment at an embassy in a country that does have diplomatic relations with us so that the visa can be placed in his passport. So he might be flying to Kazakhstan or Saudi Arabia or Thailand or wherever to get the visa put into his passport at the U.S. embassy so that he can come here.
Unbelievable. Now, are there more complications? I know when for him to go to Canada.
More complications. This process is complicated. Yeah, so we also need a visa for him to be able to work in Canada. So we're working on that in parallel with the Canadian government through their process, because our last 2 games of the regular season are in Canada.
Has that become more difficult?
Yeah. I don't know. It's the truthful answer. We are working to accelerate that. When we started it, we thought getting him here for those 2 games was very unlikely. We've come up with some ways to sort of speed it up, and we're working on it and trying to do everything we can. But we really want to see him get into a game or 2 before the playoffs get here, because, like I said, it's always an adjustment, and giving him a chance to play games in our system and have the coaches see how he plays has a lot of value for us.
So I know the Chicago Wolves are a possibility for him if you can't get the Canadian visa figured out, but before the team plays Wednesday and Thursday in Montreal and Ottawa. And the Wolves play the same system that the Hurricanes do, correct?
Correct. So that is definitely a plan. Obviously, we'd rather see him in an NHL game if we could, but at least getting him the chance to see him play the way we play has value.
Now, I know this is also a question that probably should be directed towards the head coach, and fortunately, I will talk with him tomorrow, so I will ask that question. But do you see him as a playoff roster option, like he could draw into Game 1 versus the Devils whenever that could be?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's going to be up to Rod.
Right.
We need to get him here. We need to see how he looks. I do think it is reasonable to expect at least a little bit of an adjustment period. But if we get him into a regular season game or 2, we don't know, right? He might step into those games and make you say, wow, we can't take this guy out of the lineup. He might step into those games and say, this is a guy who can come in when there's an injury, but we're not pulling someone out just yet. Or if he doesn't get a game, then he probably is waiting for an injury, I would guess. I think it's hard to it's hard to steal a job in practice. Practice it is very, very difficult to be so impressive in practice that you feel like you need to take someone out of the lineup for that player.
All right, there's about 40 other things I would love to talk to you about, but you're a busy man, and I want to keep this strictly to Alexander Nikishin. So let me ask you one more question, and then I'll circle back with you another time, and we'll run the gamut on a bunch of other things. I need to know about the emoji that you put out. I'm assuming that is your Twitter. You're not a big tweeter, but I assume that was yours. Did when you hit send on the airplane emoji, did you laugh? Did you chuckle? What was behind that?
Yeah, figure build a little bit of late night buzz, get people talking, see how it goes. The beautiful thing about it now is, this is set up to be a great bit where, 2 weeks from now at 2 a.m, I'm going to tweet a bus emoji or, I don't know, a ball of yarn, and everybody's going to be trying to figure out what that is. So
ball of yarn?
That's where the real fun comes in.
He's knitting a sweater. A ball of yarn. It was great. I woke up to that and went, oh gosh. Yeah, you broke Hurricane's Twitter, which by the way is not easy to break.
Yeah, no, it's all fun. It's, just an entertainment business, right? So building a little buzz, getting people talking, that's part of what we're supposed to do.
Eric Tulsky, Carolina Hurricanes general manager, at Eric Tulsky for all of your emoji fun. Appreciate your time. I know there's a lot of hard work to be done. Hopefully we can. I'd love to be able. We're obviously not going to see him this weekend. Love to see him in the NHL lineup Wednesday and Thursday. But we'll be watching, and I appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
You got it. Absolutely.